Hey, podcast listeners and meditators. If you like what you're hearing, did you know there is a ton more content in written and video form on our website? If you haven't checked it out yet, take a look at www.insightmyanmar.org. That's Insight Myanmar, one word, INSIGHTMYANMAR.org. In addition to seeing complete information about all of our past podcasts, there are also a variety of blogs, books, and videos available. For now, enjoy what follows, and remember, sharing is caring.
If we are complacent and don't do really aggressive containment and mitigation, the number could go way up, many, many millions.
To be isolating patients, emphasizing social distancing.
Wuhan, China confirmed the coronavirus outbreak is now a pandemic.
That COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
In Italy, one of the worst affected countries, the pace
and business supply chains are being disrupted around the globe. This combination of people being unable to work and businesses being unable to
It's confirmed the coronavirus outbreak is now a pandemic.
Change for sure, to the better.
We will realize
see an opportunity in this situation.
Please make your compassion
whatever
and kindness
karma
to the
that is
people.
good you have done
we are
this
all
will protect
looking
you.
out for each other.
Due to COVID-19, the meditators become more conscious.
They can certainly use this time to grow in Dhamma.
Kick out your negative minds.
People can become closer to each other.
Please send in metta to all over the world, all over the universe.
It will change for sure.
Practice and let's work hard more and more for sending loving kindness.
People can learn how to help each other, how to love, seeing new horizons of life.
We do see some positive aspects of this corona crisis in the world. We see that in a sense that brings people also closer together, people getting closer together and watching out for each other. We have more time for our families, for the community, and time to meditate.
Please make your compassion and loving kindness.
It was kind of actually very warm and very, very kind of them. Stabilize the heart. This reminder of this uncertainty of life, where we don't know. See what we can do and what we cannot do, what we can accomplish and what we cannot.
Remember peace in the face of suffering.
This is the second special coronavirus episode we have released. If you haven't heard the first one, we encourage you to go back and take a listen. The onslaught of the coronavirus is affecting people across the globe, including meditators for whom the Dhamma and inner reflection play a critical role in life. As the pandemic explodes, the media can scarcely keep up with its impacts on health, politics, culture, economy, as well as the myriad other ways it is transforming life around the world. However, for yogis, especially those now sheltering at home in their respective countries, and for whom Burma has a special place in their heart, one issue is of particular importance, yet very challenging to find information about, aside from anecdotal encounters or the random Facebook post. That is, how are monastics, monasteries, and meditation centers in Myanmar faring in these challenging times? There are several areas that this and future podcasts will cover on the topic. They include updates, news, and information as to how monastic and meditative life in Myanmar is being impacted. Personal anecdotes and stories from yogis and monastics currently living in Myanmar. Continued possibilities for practice and retreat in Myanmar as the country responds to the growing pandemic. Guidance and advice from the leading teachers and practitioners on the role of mindfulness during a pandemic. Historical studies of how past Burmese monks have responded to crises and disasters in Myanmar, as well as references from the scriptures. A caveat about the podcast production. In this new age of social distancing, face-to-face interviews are of course no longer possible. The most obvious consequence of this is technical. None of the guests we interview have access to a professional recording studio. Indeed, as some are living remotely in the Burmese countryside, they have little more than their phone microphone to record and send messages. Our expert sound engineers have done their best to improve and enhance the quality, but there is a limit even to their magic. In a time when even professional news outlets resort to home-recorded and mailed-in content, we are also trying to adjust to these new rules and limitations. While we apologize for any difficulty you may experience as you listen to these episodes, we appreciate your understanding of the challenges we face in producing them. We hope you find some light and wisdom in the voices that follow. We are greatly appreciative for the time that they have all generously provided to share their words and perspective. We wish all our listeners to stay safe and mentally sound, and to grow more powerfully from this challenging experience. And if you find value in what you hear, a reminder that we have loads more written content on our website, as well as videos, insightmyanmar.org. And one final note, in the form of a plug and reminder that we are 100% listener supported, so any financial contribution you make will help us keep the lights on. We have pushed beyond our limited budget and usual schedule to get out these special coronavirus episodes, and any support to help us continue to produce content will be greatly appreciated.
First, we hear from Katie Lestrange, a British expat who has lived in Mandalay. In addition to her work as a teacher there and in Shan State, she founded the charitable organization Holding Umbrellas. Through this work, she has conducted several fundraising drives for hospitals, monasteries, and impoverished communities. We invite listeners who are so inspired to consider donating to her mission.
Hello, my name is Katie Lestrange, and while my usual full-time job is as an English teacher, I am also co-founder and chief fundraiser for the Holding Umbrella Foundation, and I also work as head counsellor and executive admin on SPM, which is Suicide Prevention Myanmar Facebook page, which offers a free mental health messaging service. I've lived in Myanmar for the past nearly 8 years, and I recently returned to UK because of the COVID-19 situation just over 3 weeks ago. Right now, I'm talking to you from my beautiful hometown in Wales, UK. I haven't been back here myself for the past 3 years or so, and the time before that probably about the same, 3 years before that. So what's changed here, most notably, that I've noticed anyway, is the social distancing aspect. Obviously, that's going on everywhere. Everyone is following the rules amicably and queuing outside shops, big distance between them. No, I haven't seen anyone complaining about that. I've noticed more and more people who are wearing masks, although not everyone is doing it. I would say also the percentage of people wearing masks is much higher in Myanmar. But then I think also availability and normalcy of wearing them, I think has a lot to do with it. I've definitely noticed changes in people's behaviour. Admittedly, not from everyone, but let's say 2 or 3 people out of 10, when I greet them, say hello, either people will maybe turn away or maybe ignore you, look down. Or sometimes if you're in the shop, obviously there's only like 2 people allowed in the shop at a time. They might physically turn their backs to you as you pass by. Or obviously this is not done in malice. It's not done in a malicious way or anything. I think much more likely like out of fear of what the government's putting out as, stay away from each other, that kind of thing. But I just think it's sad. Obviously it's necessary, but the extent at which it's done, it could be, I don't know, I think it could be done more like, oh, hi, sorry, rather than like, turning your back and not acknowledging someone. I definitely have noticed that I've been really lucky here. Both the people I live with, obviously I'm here with my son, but also my grandmother and my brother, and they're both avid gardeners. So we're really lucky here to have an amazing space outside, which I know so many people are not in that situation to have and enjoy. So I'm feeling really kind of very grateful for that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Gaia Foundation and how it was set up. So Ma Aung Gugu, a young hotel manager from Mandalay's Royal Yadnabong Hotel, wanted to help the most vulnerable and desperately needed Mandalay. And he was trying to figure out like, what can he do? Who can he work with to do it? So he joined forces with his tuk-tuk driving friend, Wuhan Liang, and also a good friend of mine, Lucia, a nurse from Argentina, who's been in Mandalay since 2017. And with her help, they created a framework for the project and gave health training to the volunteers. So currently they're able to supply food to around 70 families who are suffering from insecurity, food insecurity, which basically includes and isn't, not only, but rickshaw drivers, building workers, street food sellers, flower sellers, all the people that basically rely on a daily income for food. So they will work that day and then buy the food that they need to eat. So, if I was in Mandalay, I would be, of course, much more hands-on. So I was really grateful, and I am still incredibly grateful for the chance to both donate, fundraise, and spread the word to be able to help my, beloved Mandalay. And then, other people are doing other things, and not, on slightly smaller scale, but there's Veronique Siro. She's the Hilton manager, and she posted something a few days ago about a village in Simpin. A village called Simpin, where there was a big fire, so we're not just looking at problems because of the virus, but also everyone's so focused on that other problems are going on and, information is not getting out. So she posted something where she said, there'd been a fire for 23 homes had burnt down and that the families had lost everything. So they're collecting donations of clothes, linen, household items, food, all these kind of things. So if anyone has anything spare, you can hand it in at the Hilton Hotel at the staff gate on 27th Street. The hotel itself is not open, but there's a small team of volunteers there that are collecting items. So I just wanted to note that as well. For those suffering with anxiety or fear, displacement, of which to some degree I think, we all fit into at the moment. I would say, to try to remember that you aren't alone. I mean, it's easy to say that and not to feel it, but at the moment, everyone is going through this situation. Connection itself is so key in recovery from basically any mental affliction, and also to just kind of pull us out of a slump, when we feel down. The best thing that you can do, in my experience, is to actually help someone else. So to shift those feelings, which are in fact incredibly selfish, which is basically, you saying, oh, I'm going through this problem and it's all about me, and I feel this sad, I feel put upon, I feel attacked. I'm not saying those things don't happen, but the ego itself, takes over. So even if it's just, the small act of sending a short message to someone you love and telling them that, or call someone and ask them how they are. So the important thing there is they. So you don't, you try your best to not naturally turn the conversation to talk about yourself and your problems, but, focus on what you can do to support them. Or also, if you're sharing a house with someone, make them a drink that they like, cook them something that they like, make them something small like a card or whatever it is that will make them happy, put a smile on their face and make them feel loved. That's the key here. You're giving to someone the feeling that you want. So that in itself, you're basically creating good karma is the idea, to refocus yourself. The key, is to refocus your mind onto others, and the rest just follows naturally. So you do a good deed, you give the thing that you want, naturally it comes back to you. You feel good about doing it, not because you want it to come back, but because you see, the effect that doing that good deed had. Now, I do run a mental health messaging service called Suicide Prevention Myanmar, SPM, on Facebook. And for those people that don't have anyone to reach out to, or they are surrounded by people, but they just don't feel the connection, we can be that connection for them, to just have someone to talk to. So if anyone does feel in that way, you can do that. So I really struggled the first few weeks in Wales, just being here, away from home and friends and the country that I love, Myanmar. Obviously, but now that I'm helping to organize and fundraise for those in need back home, I feel much more connected with them and kind of at peace. Like I'm not being useless just by being here, and I can't help those. Everyone's fundraising and collecting donations and handing them out, and I'm kind of, like a third wheel here. I want to help, but I can't. So now that I'm doing that, like remotely, it's been really good for my mental state. There are a few things that I do that definitely have helped me since I've been, seriously practicing Buddhism for the last 5 years or so. I try to remember to do a short coffee meditation each night, which basically is, just thinking about the good deeds that I've done that day, whether it be playing with my son and making him laugh, making dinner for the family, or it could be fundraising for some donation in Myanmar. It really helps me to refocus on the good and kind of stress less about the situation or whatever's getting me down. I find it's really easy to dwell on the negatives. I think everyone does, really. I mean, however small or large they may be, or however small or large they may appear to be for you. Obviously, everyone's different. Something else I do that really helps me with that is I keep a journal. I keep what we call a 6-day book, which is basically, one day broken up into 6 sections. So there'll be like 8 till 10:30, 10:30 till 12:30, 12:30 till 3, 3 till 7, or 3 till 5, and then 5 till 7. And then I try to write in there things that I've done that are both positive and negative for that day, things that have happened. So basically, just before bed, I will go through these things and select 3 things that weren't so good, maybe, that I need to work on the following day. So that could be, for example, something like maybe losing my temper with someone, snapping at someone. It could be something small like, being stingy with a chocolate bar, not sharing it, or, it could be like feelings of depression and worthlessness, or, things out of my control. And then, that will give me something to focus on the next day. So obviously it could, it's directly related. So obviously losing my temper would become the next day, think about controlling your anger more. Being stingy with the chocolate could be like, try to be more generous, give whatever you have, try and give, share it out. Feeling down and depressed could be, find someone else and do something to make them smile or make them laugh. So that helps me in that sense to improve myself. And so I do that first. And then the second part is the most important. So the second part is to go through and find 3 things that I did that were good, that were positive. So, that could be, it could be fundraising. I helped to arrange someone to network to arrange fundraising. It could be, donating flowers to my payam and beading or praying. It could be just, talking with my grandmother about some countries she's been to in the past and making her smile and bring back memories. And so she's had a really good time. It could be something like that. So I really find that really helps to refocus me, and it helps me to not get bogged down by the stresses of small things that suddenly take over, or also at the moment, the big things and the unanswered questions of when can we go home, what's happening with work, what about my son's Myanmar language, we're stuck in Wales, these kind of things. So definitely those things have helped me a lot. My personal meditation has been greatly affected by this upheaval, to be honest. To give you a bit of an idea, so when I'm in Myanmar, I would normally get up between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m., have a drink, wash my face, and then donate water, incense, and maybe snacks or fruit or something to my shrine at home. I would then try to do at least 10 to 15 minutes quiet time. I used to do it daily without fail. But the last year at least, became more sporadic. So I would say on average between 3 or 4 times a week I would do that. And then on Mondays and Wednesdays, I would always donate 3 or 4 vases of flowers. As me personally, I'm Danila born, and my son Yaya he is Yahoo born. So on other days, I would donate maybe sabin, zun, gangon, whatever is available at that time on string to keep it looking fresh and nice. And I always took a lot of pleasure in the flowers that I donated for Payar, more and more so most recently. I feel like it really reflected how, like, my outlook on life. Like, if I had beauty at the Payar, then I would see a lot of beauty around me. Both Monday and Wednesday, I would also, and also as well, if I was feeling worried or stressed or something, I would do beading and praying in the evening, about 10-15 minutes or maybe longer, depending how I felt. So it was definitely a big part of my life. I would try and visit Payar at least once every fortnight, every 2 weeks sometimes, more often or sometimes less, but preferring nighttime visits. So there's a lot less tourists at that time and requests for photos, because I would always wear, Myanmar traditional dress as part of my paying respect to Payar. So, but now in contrast, it's very cold here compared to Mandalay, obviously. So I'm getting up or waking up between, let's say 7, like 6:45, 8. Actually, the first few weeks, my body clock was still stuck. So I was still waking up at 4:45, 5 a.m. and, damn cold at that time. So now it's like my body's realized it's better to get up later. But, I still donate without fail on Mondays and Wednesdays to the small Buddha that I managed to bring back with me. And I do pray and do beading on those days. But I feel very kind of distracted here, like I'm just visiting, or like I'm awaiting notice to leave or something. I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate being here with my family, but I kind of feel like this is not the home for my Payar. Like, I'm waiting to take the Payar back, if that makes sense. Like, I don't really feel like myself here, but I'm still in contact with my monk via very close friends and family there in Myanmar, and I feel connected to my family there still because of that. For me personally, what will I have gained? Well, time with my family is something, that I never seemed to be the right time to come over, either working too hard or not enough money, or, whatever the reason. The last 7, nearly 8 years that I've spent in Myanmar, I've managed to come back only twice for like less than 2 weeks at a time. So now I'm in my 4th week here with, who knows how long I have in before I get back. I'm going to see that as a positive to actually be here and enjoy it. That's definitely been something that I've gained from this. And also for the world, I mean, the environment, the planet itself is able to reset a lot. And I was watching on the TV only yesterday about, in London, for example, you can hear so many species of birds and these things which you couldn't hear before because of, or they didn't come back because of the traffic. Pollution is getting less. You can see the Himalayas through, from India now, and very clearly there's no smog because there's no traffic. So there's definitely these kind of benefits to what's going on. I just really hope that people realize the true value of each other. Let's hope that people can forget petty squabbles between friends and family, and just really know how important we really are to each other. Even that connection of walking in the street, saying hello, giving someone a hug, these things, without them, it really is true. You don't know what you've got till it's gone, So I guess time will tell. And let's hope that it's a positive thing. Okay, so what led to my decision to leave Myanmar? Well, the truth is I had zero intention to leave. When nearly all of my work colleagues were booking flights out, I was stood firm and confident in my decision to stay. Then came an announcement from our embassy that we were being advised, should we say, to return home, and they were evacuating the embassy staff, which basically translates to, if anything goes wrong, you're on your own. Still unperturbed. I called my mother to tell her I wasn't worried about it. I would be fine. I was going to stay. And let's just say she had immediately had other ideas. I have a contract with a school, an international school, for June 2020. So what I thought was, well, I go back for a few months, keep everyone happy, and, see my family. Like my son wants to see, obviously, his grandmother, and my grandmother also 91 years old. So, it's always good to come back. Within 2 days, the tickets were bought and we've gone. So I left a whole house full of things, on the understanding of being back in June. Do I regret it? I did. The truth is, the first 2 weeks were really hard for me. I felt like a duck out of water, someone who didn't belong, who no longer fits in here. I was pining for my home back in Mandalay. Not just my home, but everything, which, from what I'm hearing now, things, for example, markets obviously closing, and everything is kind of similar to here on restrictions. But obviously when you leave and those restrictions are not yet in place, it's hard to imagine, that being there, and what you miss is not actually there. Now, though, I'm into my 4th week here, and I feel much more settled, mostly knowing, that I'm still connected to Mandalay and Myanmar mostly by helping with this donation that I'm doing at the moment, has really helped my mental state. I am resigned. No, let's not say resigned. Realistic that this situation will not be resolved within the next 6 months or so. And I'm coming to terms with my decision that landed me here where I am. I truly believe actually that I am meant to be here at the moment, and it is both my benefit and to those around me, for me to actually be here right now. Obviously I get the chance to help to take care of my grandmother and be with my younger brother, who, I've obviously missed dearly. And my son can make real connection with, his family here. So there are definitely pros to being here. I do feel that pull to go back, to get home, even though this is, where my family are. But I really feel that Myanmar is my home and will be for the foreseeable future. So, but there are also things I can do here that I couldn't do there. Like I can try and set up some more fundraising avenues here. And when this has died down, I can learn to drive, which I never managed to do. So, there are definitely reasons to be here, which is good. The most promising thing that I've experienced in Myanmar, in the wake of this coronavirus situation, is something actually that I already was very well aware of, but let's just say it cemented my already strong belief. And that is the astounding generosity of the Myanmar people. To compare for a second, a few weeks ago, as I was hearing the news about Las Vegas in USA, about how, although as nearly all the hotels lay empty, the people were applauding each other for designating a few unused car parks for the homeless people to sleep in. Or, across the pond in the UK here, because people needed to isolate away from their family, they were renting rooms at hotels that had since put up their rates. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, people, hotel owners or owners of big buildings have been lining up to donate their buildings for the use of quarantine patients, and everyone doing their bit to donate what they can to help those in need, from rich to not rich, and everyone helping the poor and the needy. So it shows, the beauty of Myanmar, and one of the many reasons why I love it so much.
Sayalay Piyadassii comes to us from Taunggyi in Shan State. A Lithuanian nun who ordained in Myanmar back in 2013, she talks about how the pandemic has affected her life, studies, and practice in Upper Myanmar.
one of my friends, he's from Russia, but he's stuck in Thailand on one island together with people with whom he doesn't have much like in common for his interests. He likes whatever meditation and whatever, but now he's saying, like he was saying, that he feels like kind of apathy, like feeling like in a swamp and like just stagnation, because you're kind of locked in. For many people, there is this stagnation feeling, and including myself, What I want to like contrast here is my life in Spain, where you feel like the freedom to do, the freedom to live how you want to live, to go where you want to go, to meditate, to enjoy the nature and everything. And now suddenly, I think for a short time it's still okay, but this thing is like going on and extending and you cannot go anywhere, like really feeling like in prison or in swamp. I don't know, this kind of feeling. But it's also interesting to observe it and to look in the mind and why it is like that and how it is, and to accept it. Oh, what else can we do, So far, the only remedy I found for it is meditation, really. Otherwise, somehow everything feels a little bit pointless or very pointless. I don't know. I think the only really time when in the evening I can feel that the day was not wasted away is when I meditate. And so, with now when you have all these many virtual opportunities which were not available before, so yeah, we actually can do something. And online retreats, I mean, I would have never thought that can be any way kind of successful, but like for 3 days to join online something and actually feel like on a retreat and really, really benefit. Of course, I think it depends on the teacher a lot and on the setting and everything. So if everything is well done, it can be very helpful. And yesterday I've joined class with Bhikkhu Bodhi. So because he already for many years, every Saturday he's giving a class in his monastery on reading suttas, and now since this pandemic, this lockdown, quarantine, whatever, they opened these classes. They're now doing these classes via Zoom, and so you don't have to live in America. You don't have to live there to attend the class. You can be in Myanmar, and you can just join in. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So I think the influxes like that, input like that, it can be kind of very, I don't know, something positive that still can happen. I see around people. I see also, how people around, how they are dealing with this. Well, one thing they do now in our place, in our university monastery, they're planting a lot. So many trees. I don't know how many, but constantly, every day, monks, including monks. So never mind, you cannot do this or that. Never mind. Now you can. So yeah, people working with land and doing something physical. I think also for the health of the body, for the health of the mind. It's healthy. I too have a little garden, but it's not doing great. But anyway, it doesn't matter really. Yeah. I think if I think about what kind of practice, how I practice apart from observing whatever is arising and accepting it, which is very, very powerful, but it is just the first step. I deliberately develop gratitude. I deliberately develop mudita, this what we call sympathetic joy, and other Brahma Viharas. I think Brahman Viharas are helping a lot, especially when the mind is dissatisfied. Well, it really works like as an antidote. And also, I was really surprised, to see how quickly things can be recovered. What I mean, when I lived in Spain, I had to practice metta for my livelihood. Really, it was a question of survival. If you want to survive, you have to have metta. So I had to develop it. Here in Myanmar, because you live in a setting when you don't have to worry about anything. You can do your studies in meditation. That's it. You don't have to worry about your livelihood. So there is no this pressure, for you to have metta or not have metta. And I noticed that it actually drops slowly, drops, and really more. And this becomes obvious when in the mind more and more you notice this some kind of annoyance, dissatisfaction, whatever. So now when there was this 3-day retreat, it was a metta retreat, and just in 3 days, how much can be kind of gained back? I was really, really surprised how quickly. It's just in the same way as, if in the past we have developed deep concentration and later, because of busy life or whatever, the concentration is gone again. It doesn't take really long time to recover when we practice. So with the metta is the same thing with other Brahma Viharas. And mudita about the simple things that we still can, especially here. When I think about people in cities locked in their flats, that Corona for these people, but mudita for me, yeah, these are helpful. I have one friend in Moscow, and she's locked in a flat. She was locked in a flat for I don't remember how many weeks. So she said, really, there are changes in the mind, and now she finally was able to go out of Moscow and drive quite far away, and now stay in the nature, in a house in the nature, in a village, and it's so different. Of course, it affects. But here we have quite a big territory, and every morning, before breakfast, early morning, whatever, whenever I get up, I go to the pagoda and I sit and I meditate until breakfast. So, to make a round here is maybe, 20 minutes is to make a round. So, but they have closed the university, the monastery, so properly. They put a barbed wire around, So just by seeing barbed wire, it's not a problem. Maybe it wouldn't be a problem that you cannot go out, but it's just this understanding that you cannot go out. It actually has a bigger effect than the fact that you cannot go out, So you're in prison. But of course, we are in prison, samsara, we always have been. And so, there are bigger prisons, and but that also, seeing this barbed wire, it stirs the mind also. It stirs the mind. It can stir the mind, to become dissatisfied and to complain, but it can also stir the mind into direction of really understanding that we are in prison anyway, in a room or in a, I don't know, in a university or in samsara. In samsara we've always been every moment. So that's just an encouragement to also to not to waste time, because we think the things are bad now, but maybe we think so only because they have not got worse yet, and they might. Million or not million, but many other things worse can happen, and it can get worse. So yeah, this kind of situation can be encouraging if the mind doesn't find itself in swamp. What we have here in samsara, we have our essential objects, our attachment. So if it's we maybe in samsara, actually we are imprisoned not by the barbed wire, we are chained. We are rather chained, I think. So maybe the image is different, but the essence is same. Cannot go out. Locked in. In here we're quite isolated, but not, I mean, it's a little bit funny the way our administration manages things. So they have announced the lockdown on the 1st of April. Okay, and so for 1 month, but now it's extended until the 15th. Maybe they will extend further. So when they announced it and they put this barbed wire and everything and very strictly, and we cannot go out anywhere, but the donors were still coming in. So they limited the amount of donors that had in a group not more than 8. So I felt very funny. Of course, we depend on these people and food, but like, we cannot go out, but they can come in. That's very interesting. And then maybe 2 weeks later only, or I think maybe 2 weeks later, they asked not to come anybody. So no donors would come anymore. But in the beginning of the lockdown, we had a visit twice from military. So there was one group from military, they came to disinfect everything and they sprayed with whatever chlorine, I think. They sprayed like all public areas. And then the next day they came again from military, but this time doctors. And, funny things, but they measured the temperature and the blood pressure and sugar and how do you call it, for the heart? ICG, is it? Anyway, so they did the basic kind of checkup just to see that you're healthy and who had problems. And I, at the time, I had some really concerning problem with my head. And so I could consult with them, and even one of them came back next day and brought me some medicine. So, and we learned from Sayadaw that there are a number of groups of military doctors, they're going around like monasteries, all monasteries in Taunggyi, and doing this, like checking people if they're okay and giving them support. So they're bringing medicine with them and everything, and disinfecting. And so I thought that's nice when military does that. Well, they're not fighting, but they're actually taking care of their surrounding. And so no, since the 1st of April, we have not been out at all. So I have no idea how it looks outside, but I know things are closed mostly. But that's I know. I don't know. That's I know from thus have I heard how it is in the reality. Before April, in the end of March, we did go out once, And I was very, very surprised to see that everything is happening as usual. At least at that time, the market on the road was on and another market on. People just like everything normal, completely normal, you know. So I found it strange at that time. But now I think things are more serious. And there are no coaches between the cities. So there are no shuttle services running. And it's not so easy to move about. So we can stay in your Taunggyi or in your town, but you cannot really travel much unless it's really necessary. So, yeah, this is how much is known to me. Yeah, but I think things are getting better, maybe. I don't follow the news. In the beginning, I did follow the news in the beginning. In February, I went to Sri Lanka. So at that time already, that was in China. Things were in China they have not spread yet into, or we didn't know about it being in Europe at the time. So I did go to Sri Lanka, and at that time I checked the situation. And after when I came back and somebody told me, oh, now it's much worse, now it's much worse, you don't know, you don't go to Europe, you don't go. And I was following the news maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. I got tired. And I stopped. I just found it pointless. Really cannot change anything, and it doesn't really change anything. What is the number for me? I'm staying here. Doesn't change anything. I call my father every week and check on him. And I was going to go to Europe. Actually, I had a flight in March. Yes, on March, which day? 20th. I think it was supposed to be. It was cancelled, and so I didn't go. I stayed here. And our university actually encouraged us also not to go and to stay. When the Sayadaw gave this encouragement, my rebellion mind said, no, I will go. I still will go. I have a ticket and my father is alone and I have to go. But then when the air company canceled the flight, then I couldn't do anything. Yeah, I had to surrender. It was not easy to surrender. But what else to do? Only maybe after my father told me that he will feel more, he will worry less if I stay where I am and I don't travel. Then it became okay. The virus, the pandemic, of course, has made a great change already and will continue making, and it's including like those, at least I haven't seen personally, but I have seen some pictures and I've heard people so happy about the animals coming back and they see Himalayas on their horizon, and it's inspiring that that this changes, that with our behavior change, this can happen. And so when we relinquish some things, then animals don't have to leave. They can be near, and the sky can remain clear. And in this situation, people can learn how to help each other and how to love each other. This help each other point, actually. The other day I was talking to my friend Sayalay, Myanmar Sayalay, and I was telling her that the Myanmar is very well prepared is really, really well prepared. They keep on saying, oh, the healthcare system is very bad. If this comes, then, it all will collapse. And it's not about healthcare system. I don't think it's about healthcare system. What is in place in Myanmar is mutual support in the time of hardship. They've been through so much really difficult times that they learned how to support each other unconditionally. Like this helping your neighbor or really anybody is in their blood, and they grow up with it. And so in the West now, people have a chance to learn this, to have a taste for it, and hopefully to adopt it as a practice for future. Whether there is a disaster or there is no disaster, it doesn't really matter, because there are always beings who need help. And if we practice long enough, it can get wired in the brain. So there is one of my hopes that people can become closer to each other. And even though now we are extensively using the digital communication, I really hope that this will not become a norm. And I hope people actually will get, I'm not sure if it will happen, but I hope that people will get tired of it, and when they can actually talk live and do things live, they will rather prefer doing live, and maybe even what they were doing before, like, I don't know, virtually, they will switch to live. I think this hope is a little bit, how to say, I don't believe much what I'm saying now, I just hope, but I don't know if that's realistic. Let's say, I don't think that's a very realistic hope, but I can dream. So this is my dream, really, that people will become more live and will do things more live, because they are now pushed into being so digital and doing digital. Even you see digital retreat, and I'm saying how good it is, but it's just because there is no other opportunity at the moment. I wish everybody clean hands and hearts, and a clean heart is more important, of course. And for those who feel drowning now, I wish them to reach the bottom soon and push themselves up and start rise, seeing new horizons of life. And I wish people to live a life of mutual support and care now. And after we've crossed this hurdle. Is that okay?
Yeah, that was excellent. The whole last bit was, I think, really, really nice. Especially the part about Myanmar being much more prepared than people were giving it credit for having decades of needing to take care of each other. They've been in crisis almost like as a norm, and they just have normalized helping each other and taking care of each other. I think that was a beautiful point. I don't think we hear that from many people, so it's nice to hear it.
So that's what I see, even today. Well, I said there is the no donors until today. There was no donors. I haven't seen any donors for a long time, but today there were donors. Only few, maybe 2 or 3, but whatever. But they brought a lot of different stuff to offer, and they offer masks, because this is now what they offer now. And like alcohol tissue, whatever, and I don't know. They take care. Not only of us. I'm sure not only of us. And I see my Sayadaw in Taunggyi, on Facebook, posting pictures how they're also going around and offering, supporting other monasteries nunneries or poor people, because there are poor quarters, And so that's what they've been always doing, really. Whenever, the flood is every year.
Right. Yeah, great interview. Do you have more to record, or should we stop?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
The initial funds that allowed us to set up this Insight Myanmar podcast came unexpectedly, and we did our best to stretch them as far as possible. Unfortunately, that generous startup donation could not have predicted the pressing need to cover our exploding health crisis and meeting the interest and concern many meditators have expressed about the situation at Burmese monasteries and meditation centers. So, if you would like to hear podcasts that address this new content or assist others in being able to access them, please consider making a donation to fund this work. Most all podcast contributors work entirely as volunteers, and those few receiving remuneration are meditators who have offered 50% or more discount for their professional services. Nonetheless, there is still no real way to produce an episode for less than several $100s. Whatever funds we are able to collect now will be used solely for producing these new episodes, and any additional donations will allow us to increase our run. Thank you for your support. Stay safe and be well. We welcome your contribution in any amount, denomination, and transfer method. You may give via Patreon at patreon.com/InsightMyanmar, via PayPal at paypal.me/InsightMyanmar, or by credit card by going to insightmyanmar.org/donation. In all cases, that's Insight Myanmar, one word, INSIGHTMYANMAR. You can also go to the GoFundMe site and search Insight Myanmar to find our present campaign. If you are in Myanmar and would like to give a cash donation, please feel free to get in touch with us.
Dominika Bystrzyk, a backpacker on a gap year from Poland, got her first taste of Dhamma as a volunteer at the Thabawa Center. Shortly after, she decided to forego travel a while and learn meditation. She joins us from a remote monastery in Myanmar where, given a chance to return home before lockdown, decided to stay on and continue to practice instead.
So when the situation with COVID started, I think it was in January, and obviously it started in China, and it wasn't growing at the beginning very fast, and the situation wasn't changing very fast. But the news were coming quite quickly. So we knew, me and my friends, because from January I've been in Myanmar. We've been searching the news and checking the situation, how is it changing. So we already knew how many cases are in the world, where is the worst, and where is the safest place about the COVID. And it was moving from China, actually, I think, to Thailand, and there were many cases in Bangkok. So a lot of people from Myanmar wanted to go to Bangkok because there's a huge airport and they want to go to other places, but they were very scared to go there because of COVID. That time in January, I was a volunteer in Tabarva in Thailand, and I knew that I would be there for a few months, and I felt there very safe, and I felt that the situation doesn't touch me, it doesn't affect me. That's a kind of illusion. So I knew that whenever it would happen, if it's going to be worse or it's going to be better, I will stay in the one place and not move around. That was my plan, basically. And I think at the beginning of February, it was about 60,000 of cases. And right now it's over 5 million. And I really remember when I was checking the news every single day, and you're getting more scared because you only have news and you have no idea what is going on around the world when you're close in one place and not moving. So the situation was changing, and obviously I was checking how it is. But I was really feeling fine, trying not to panic, actually. And I think people in Europe started more panicking about Asia. than people in Asia, actually. So in January, it was quite fine. In February, it was growing. It was really fast growing. But I still was in one place, and I still felt safe, and everything was fine. Then in the middle of February, I decided to travel around Myanmar. So I moved on to the north, and then I felt that I really need to start meditating, and I really need to stay in a monastery. And obviously, the situation still was okay, and you could travel. But I decided at the end of February to go to the monastery and to start meditation. And I think that was the best idea in my life, actually. I had no idea about meditation, about mindfulness awareness. I decided to go to the monastery of Ashen Sarana because I met him before in Tallinn because he had a Dhamma talk. And I was listening to that, and it was very interesting for me. It was very, very clear what he's saying. And it was kind of an opening eyes experience. So that time I decided that in the future, I will go to the monastery and start my meditation, the path. So at the end of February, I wrote a message to Ashen Sarana, and he said, yes, please come every time, whenever you want. So I came with no expectations, actually. And I knew that this word, it's not my word, if I can say like this. It wasn't what I expected. Actually, I would never choose meditation. I think it wasn't really what suits me. So it wasn't very obvious idea. Yes, I really find myself in a monastery, and I really find something like beneficial for me in meditation, which still sounds for me very weird, we can say. So I started my meditation, and I was very interested. And the situation was with the COVID-19, it was growing. And I think in the middle of March, the situation was huge, and it was all over the Europe. It was actually, I think it was over 1 million of cases. And I remember my parents told me, please come back home. And I consciously and very aware decided to stay in Myanmar and not to move, not to come back home where we're safe. So I decided to stay in Myanmar and meditate till the situation will be fine, we can say. But right now it's already May, and I'm not really into the situation of what is in the world, in the external world, because I find myself here in a meditation center, and I really love to be here, and I really feel safe and protected, because there was a time that no one from outside could come to the monastery. And that was really a protection for us, for yogis. And I feel very lucky and grateful that I can be here and not being scared if I will get COVID, or if I can move, or if I can go for a flight, or I have to be in quarantine, or whatever. So actually, that's a kind of a paradox, because I closed myself in a monastery before the quarantine started. So yeah, I did it on purpose, and I'm very glad about that. We were actually in Taunggyi in a monastery of Ashen Sarana, and we were there since April, I think, and we had to change the monastery. We had to move to other place, and that was a little bit frightening, because in Myanmar there was a situation that you couldn't move. Actually, I even think that they lock out Yangon, and obviously the foreigners were were not able to move because in Myanmar, people were very scared about foreigners. They thought that we came with the COVID. We started COVID in Myanmar. So yeah, I remember that they didn't like that foreigners are traveling. So we had to move to other monastery, and it wasn't really easy. So I think we did it actually a little bit that secretly. And I also remember that Venerable Usarana said that we cannot go out of the monastery. So we already had no choice to go out and to change our situation, change the place. So we had to stay in a monastery, and I was absolutely fine with that. Actually, I love that idea. And I remember that time my friends who were in Tabarva, in Tallinn, working as a volunteer, they had a last chance to come back home to their countries, and almost everyone came back. So I knew that everyone who I know actually in Myanmar came back home, and I was totally alone. But still, I felt very safe about that. And yes, like in Europe, the situation was very bad, because it moved from Asia to Europe. And in Italy, it was very bad. So I remember my parents were panicking, kind of, and begging me to come back home. But I said no. And my sister at that time was in Edinburgh because she was living there. And she couldn't come back home to Poland, and there was no flights available. And I remember we were really panicking that she's stuck there for, we have no idea how long will the COVID last. So of course, secretly, she came back to Poland, and it was a huge problem. And she had to come back by car and so on. So I was very scared about that situation. I was more scared about people in Europe than people in Asia. And that was like that. In the first monastery, it was amazing. We really loved that place. Love yogis, of course. But the second monastery where we are right now is amazing also. And we are far from other people. So actually, I think no one knows we are here. Yeah, it's really amazing. And there were some yogis at the monastery. There was one yogi that really wanted to move on and go to another place, to another monastery to change the environment, but he couldn't because all other places said no more foreigners, and no one was allowed to go anywhere. So not everyone was okay with that situation. That was just my point of view that I felt very lucky and grateful. So yeah, there were people who didn't appreciate the situation, who didn't like it. But in this kind of situation, you cannot change anything. You just have to stay humble, actually. As I started my meditation, I remember I started with love and kindness. And it's a beautiful practice where you have to actually have a lot of peace and love inside yourself. And it's really hard those times to have inner peace because you're hearing a lot of news, a lot of bad news about COVID and how the situation is changing. And it's obviously influenced you and influenced your meditation. And it's really challenging, it's really challenging to stay stable, to not be worried about your family, about you, about other people, about how it's going on. So yes, it was very hard for me to find my inner peace and not being disturbed, being focused on what is right now, right here. And you're trying not to use smartphone and try not to connect with the external world, but it's just not possible because you cannot really close yourself in this situation. You cannot say that, hey, I'm in a monastery, that situation doesn't affect me. I don't want to hear any news, I don't care, because you're not an ignorant and you're still living in society and you still have to take care about people. So yeah, the situation strongly influenced us meditators. And it was actually to be honest, I had a lot of motivation to meditate, because I knew that I cannot change the world, I cannot change the situation, but I can change my view, my own view about that. And I can calm myself down. And that's the best what I can do in this situation. Then I also started to meditate on death, and it's changed my perspective about sickness, about death, about if we are healthy or not. And I really started appreciating the situation, that obviously it's very bad and people are dying all over the world, but we have to appreciate that we're still alive, that we are healthy, that we can do what we are doing right now, that even if you are in quarantine and you don't like the situation, obviously, because no one likes to be locked down in your own house, we have to appreciate that okay, the situation is like this, but yeah, we are fine. And that was really opening my eyes, and really changing the view. So I think I find my inner peace, and I find a lot of motivation, and meditation helped me a lot. And I really don't want even to think what I would do if not meditation, how I would behave, how I would be in panic, what would happen. So yeah, I'm really glad that there is something like meditation. And I really wish that other people could try this out and try how amazing it is for you, how it can all change the views, the perspective. And our teacher, Ashin Sarana, I think he was taking care of us, and he was a big support. He was a massive support. And other monks who were in the monastery there, they were really taking care of us yogis. And that made me feel very great, actually. And every time if you would have any problem with the COVID, or even if you would like to come back home, everyone would like to talk with you, to talk about the situation, and yeah, change it. So that time Ashin Sarana was in the US, and actually I was very worried that he will not come back to Myanmar because of the quarantine, and because like no one could come to Myanmar. People were not allowed to come to this country anymore. So I was very worried he will not come back. But yeah, luckily he's here with us. And yeah, all the monks are safe, all the yogis who I know, they're safe. So I'm really glad about that. In the age of 22, I finished my university, and I decided I will go on my gap year to Asia, and it was November 19. And I thought that this kind of situations like COVID, like a pandemic, whatever, will never ever happen to me. But I think that everyone thinks that those kind of situations would not happen, because we are so lucky, everything goes smooth and good. So I started my traveling around Asia, and of course I had so many plans about where I will go, what I will do, if I would see this or that. And the COVID changed everything. It changed the plans. And there's this kind of joke, tell the God about your plans. And I was really laughing that we are living in a society where we're planning things, when we're thinking about the future, and we are not living in the present moment. And the situation, everything around us can change so quickly. And I would love to tell myself and other people to be in the present moment and not thinking about what will happen in a few months, in a few years, because you don't know, maybe tomorrow the world will end up, or maybe tomorrow another COVID or another virus will come and you will not be able to move. So yeah, people who like me who are backpackers and they're thinking, where they're gonna travel. It's now I'm thinking how full, how stupid it is, because you're running to the future and you're not right now and right here. And I think that's everything what people took for granted suddenly became not true anymore, even not possible. So maybe we should not take things for granted and be appreciated for every single day what is happening, that we are still safe, we are still healthy. And be grateful for the situation, because we never know how it's going to be. That's the world is just amazing, and everything is unexpected. So yeah, I was planning to travel to go to Vietnam and to Laos, and now I'm in Myanmar for I have no idea for how long.
Now we hear from Inga Bergman, a Lithuanian meditator residing in Chicago. While on pilgrimage to Myanmar several years ago, she met a local monastic supporter, Myo, who she has kept in touch with. Through him, she learned that many Burmese monasteries desperately needed food and medical supplies, and has led a fundraising effort to address this dire situation.
It was summer of 2007 when I was driving like a maniac to meet this Israeli, Russian Vedic astrologer guy who was visiting United States, where I was living at the time and still do. So I guess I wanted to know my future. And then I came in after, I don't remember if it was after our, whatever, this astrology reading or before, he mentioned, that you are very, very tense, which was absolutely correct. And he said, there is this meditation in the state you are living, which is Illinois. And if you will go there, it might help you. It might help you relax because you're extremely tense. And it's even donation-based. So it's called Vipassana meditation. Check it out. Maybe it will actually do good for you. And to this day, that's probably the only thing, well, another couple small things, but the main only thing which I remember from that conversation. It took me maybe a few months, I think so, because I went for my first course in, I believe, October 2007, and that was it. Basically, after that course, now I'm 13 years later, a manager at the same meditation center, which is called Dhamma Pakasa near Rockford, Illinois, in little town Pecatonica. And it's still a mystery to me how it all happened. Why did I took this path for so long, and did path take me or I took it? Of course, I don't want to diminish my experiences, and perhaps that was a transformational point during my first course, when actually I understood that no matter what's happening outside, my tape in the head, which runs the show, and during the first course, basically you do meditate, you do listen to the recordings and do other things, but basically there's a minimum input from the outside. But in spite of that, you somehow manage to get sad and mad, and even your neighbor, starts bothering you, even thought we never even said a word to you, but, perhaps we're eating too loudly or breathing somehow wrongly. It's like all these things. So you decide, that, oh no, that's not for you. It's all nonsense, and you want to just leave. So all these things are happening, even though there's no input from the outside. And yes, that's the world is what's in your head. That becomes very clear. And another thing, what was surprising at the time for me, that apparently even my thoughts are sensations. I can just observe them, and they can just arise and pass away, and I might not even know what I was about to think. And apparently that's okay. The world was still going on. And after, I just couldn't forget anymore. I couldn't just live differently anymore. So all these things, I don't know if that all these things kept me for another 13 years of this path. And the path involved different things. At the beginning, it was a little magic. I would come with my eyes wide open and a new community, which I desperately wanted to have. Like I wanted to have home since I was a foreigner. I was somewhat having a challenging time adapting to the new society. And this was my home. This was something I would come, and just as soon as I would enter the driveway, it would be like everything else was left on that road behind me. And I was in the center. It would be like different atmosphere. Like I just entered some sort of devil land or I don't know, divine land or something like that. This magic was going for a while, and I would feel how much I get from it. And I would give back. And I would get even more, and I would give back, and I would get in so many different ways. It through people, through experiences, through, I don't know, it's just sometimes really it seemed like it's a magic thing. But as time continued to go, I think this magic turned into something more realization of just maybe more. Vipassana, just I started seeing things the way they are, which maybe not so much magic, but just the way they are. That's what you put out, that's what you get back. And a lot of time, the kindness and other qualities, it doesn't have to necessarily come from like a high feeling. It just it's enough to understand. It's enough to understand. That there is a need, that there is a responsibility, that there is right now something in front of you which maybe needs your help. It's probably for some reason why it is in front of you and that it needs help. And I started being very, very careful to notice these kind of moments. And I'm sure I missed a lot of these kind of moments, but I try to my best. So one of the things that happened not too long ago, maybe right now it's probably like a week and a half ago, one man from Myanmar contacted me through Facebook asking for help. Now, like a little background to that, 3 or 4 years ago, I went to Burma. So that was, part of my path in Vipassana. I wanted to see the land which kept, the tradition going for so many years. I wanted to experience that in the meditation centers there. I wanted to find other monasteries and just to see how people are living there, how monks are living there. So I went there with 2 of my other friends, and we met Mio, that's the name of this man, in Yangon, where he was our guide for a couple of days. And Mio he seemed like a very, very kind person and intelligent person. As I learned later, he was an orphan, I believe, since the age of 9. And since then, he lived in different monasteries. One of the interesting thing about the monasteries in Burma, that they are basically like a summer camp for kids or orphanages or... it's an interesting social structure. It's kids are just there. Like monastery is not something closed from society. Monastery is part of society. Kids and lay people are coming there, and meditators, and things are happening in monasteries there. So this part of society, which is somewhat responsible for your spiritual being, and the lay people, they support monasteries because that's what there's a structure that the people who work, they work and make money. People who live in monastery, that's their job, is to meditate, to send loving kindness to the world, to bless other people. So there is a symbiosis, some sort of, in society. And it works. It seems like all monasteries were doing pretty well when I was there. And I had an immense pleasure of visiting this country and visiting a few places. In fact, to this day, I especially one place near Mandalay, I just, it's still in my heart so much. When I practice loving kindness, I almost always remember that place. So back to Mio. We met with him. We had a great time. He helped us, and Now he is texting me through Facebook and trying to tell that due to coronavirus, monks they have lack of food. Myanmar is still one of the places where monks go out every single day with their bowls to collect food for their day. They don't have a bank account. They don't somehow store too much of the things. They live day by day, and they completely depend on the surrounding. So right now, due to coronavirus, everything is shut down. They cannot go out, they cannot beg for food, lay people cannot come in and bring their food. And suddenly they're in this weirdest situation where their day-by-day life is basically stopped, and they're not prepared for that. Mia actually never asked from me anything before. His call to me was somewhat of an equivalent to a monk coming to my door with his bowl. And I felt actually in some way even honored because of that. And of course, I thought, what can I do? Right now, since I'm a manager at the Vipassana Center, my stipend is not that large. Of course, I can donate some amount, but I thought, is that going to be enough? So I decided, why not to give that merit to more people? Since actually in the tradition it's not even so much for the monks that we receive food. Of course, we do receive food and we are grateful, but it's also for people who give them food. They receive a merit for that. So I thought, why maybe my friends also want to get merits? Why to deprive them from that? And so I made this little GoFund campaign where everybody can, donate as much as they can, actually, which was pretty successful. I was surprised how many people were so kind. And of course, I have a lot of meditators who in my friend list, which were pretty active in this campaign. But even not meditators, I was happy to see. I was happy to see that people have such an open mind, especially since probably many Westerners don't exactly understand that concept of day-to-day living. Even myself, I didn't understand that well, because when I wanted to transfer money, I asked if monastery has a bank account, and Mio started laughing. He said, "No, of course we don't. How would we?" And he said, "I don't have account also. I've never done that before. It's just right now this type of situation happened." So it is a concept which is somewhat foreign for us Westerners, and maybe a lot of people would think, well, that's what kind of cause is that? I'm happy that a lot of people actually did understand. So yeah, the campaign actually went well, and it's still open. We will be sending money pretty soon, and I hope somehow it will become better for the monasteries in Myanmar. And it seems like a great opportunity for all of us who perhaps are not exposed to this kind of merit giving to the monks right now, to be able to participate and donate even from far away. That's probably a good part for our global living these days, and having information and accessibility to things through internet. And again, I feel fortunate that this possibility came my way and may be beneficial to givers and receivers. May all be happy.
You have been listening to the Insight Myanmar podcast. We would appreciate it very much if you would be willing to rate, review, and/or share this podcast. Every little bit of feedback helps. If you are interested, you can subscribe to the Insight Myanmar podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, please check out our website for a list of our complete episodes, including additional text, videos, and other information available at www.insightmyanmar.org. If you cannot find our feed on your podcast player, please let us know and we will ensure it can be offered there. There was certainly a lot to talk about in this episode, and we'd like to encourage listeners to keep the discussion going. You can make a post, suggest a guest, request specific questions, and join in on discussions on our Insight Myanmar podcast Facebook group. You are also most welcome to follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts by the same name. If you're not on Facebook, you can also message us directly at burmadhamma@gmail.com. That's one word, burmadhamma@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to start up a discussion group on another platform, let us know and we can share that forum here. We would also like to take this time to thank everyone who made this podcast possible, especially our two sound engineers, Martin Combs and Taunggyi. There's, of course, Zach Hessler, content collaborator and part-time co-host. Ken Pransky helps with editing. Dragos Bandita and Andre Francois make our sketches. GPU does our Burmese translation. Herman Perez, Santiago Hedar, and Marisol do our Spanish translations. And a special Mongolian volunteer who has asked to remain anonymous does our social media templates. We'd also like to thank everyone who assisted us in arranging for the guests we have interviewed so far. And of course, we send a big thank you to the guests themselves for agreeing to come and share such powerful personal stories. Finally, we're immensely grateful for the donors who made this entire thing possible in the first place. We also remind our listeners that the opinions expressed by our guests are their own and not necessarily reflective of the host or other podcast contributors. Also, this recording is the exclusive right of Insight Myanmar podcast. It is meant for personal listening only and cannot be used without the express written permission of the podcast owner. This includes any video, audio, written transcript, or excerpt of any episode. That said, we are open for collaboration, so if you have a particular idea in mind for sharing any of our podcasts or podcast-related information, please feel free to contact us with your proposal. Finally, we welcome your contribution in any amount, denomination, or transfer method. You may give via Patreon at www.patreon.com/insightmyanmar, via PayPal at www.paypal.me/insightmyanmar, or by credit card by going to www.insightmyanmar.org/donation. In all cases, that's Insight Myanmar, one word, INSIGHTMYANMAR. If you'd like to give especially to support our new run of coronavirus episodes, please go to the GoFundMe site and search for Insight Myanmar to find our campaign there. If you are in Myanmar and would like to give a cash donation, please feel free to get in touch with us. With that, thank you for listening, and we welcome back next show. I know for a lot of podcast listeners, as soon as the fundraising requests start up, you kind of just zone out or skip ahead until it's over. But I ask that if you're taking the time to listen to our full podcast, that you also take the time to consider our spiel. Some may assume that producing a 90-minute episode wouldn't take much more time than the conversation itself, but there's so much more that goes into it. Several days in advance, our content team reviews the biography and any works of the upcoming guest and discusses the best way to use our limited time together. Our logistics department coordinates transportation for the guest to the studio, and then after the interview, the raw audio file is sent to our sound engineer. One 90-minute episode can take him up to 2 days of solid work, which is carefully coordinated with our content team to ensure smooth listening. More work is then done recording the introduction of the guest and other segments, particularly the post-interview reflection, and then mixing them back together to upload to the hosting site, delivering the podcast that our listeners eventually hear. We hope each one provides you a solid hour plus of inspirational and informative Dhamma content, and if so, we also hope that you can consider supporting our mission. And if you would like to do so, we welcome your contribution. You may give via Patreon at www.patreon.com/insightmyanmar, one word, as well as via PayPal at www.paypal.me/insightmyanmar, one word. That's INSIGHTMYANMAR. If you are in Myanmar and would like to give a cash donation, please feel free to get in touch with us.